Hello and welcome to The Life You're Made For. I'm your host, Dr. Heather Pinney. Often our world feels reactive, confusing, and chaotic. On this show, we're going to slow down together. Take a breath, listen, and learn. We'll be joined in conversations with influential thinkers who will help us make new connections, understand our unique potential, check the beliefs we hold, and learn how to overcome unexpected challenges. I know that each and every one of us holds our own inner clarity, confidence, and courage, what I call 3C living and leading. So let's go after it together. I'm cheering you on. I am so excited to have my good friend and mentor and coach and endorser for my book. There's a lot of titles that you carry for me, Bob.
A really good friend. That's the best one. Yeah, I'll take it.
This is Bob Goff, and we've known each other for several years now. It's just fun to have him on my show today. So welcome, Bob.
Thanks a million. So glad to be on here, Heather, and the influence that you have on so many people. I'm just so glad that you've got a podcast where people can tap in and just be encouraged.
Oh, well, thank you. I have to start out with something kind of comical because this just so personifies who you are. But when I reached out to your team to say, hey, is Bob available to be on my podcast show? And your response was hilarious. I'm coming, Heather. I'm in Africa, but I'm buying giraffes.
Isn't that fun?
Yeah. So I have to start there. Can you tell us a little bit more of what that was all about?
Yeah, we've had some schools there's 14 different countries, but the first one was Uganda I want to say 22 years ago. And that school went from 9 kids to 19 and 900. Now there's 1,500 kids at the school. And we were thinking, let's take these kids from diapers to doctorate. And so we're not getting 4, low buildings and putting a paper sign in front of it that says university. We're actually building, 4-story buildings and a university. It's tens of millions of dollars. It's a really big endeavor for a guy that went to the Harvard of the West, like San Diego State, and barely graduated. But we have this hope for the kids that are in our primary school that they'll look across the way and see the elementary schools, and then elementary to junior high, and the junior hires can see the senior high school. There's 70 or 80 buildings already built for these guys on a pretty big footprint. But we want them to look to the right and not just see a university, but to see giraffes. And for the kid that's in a village, that's in a hut, they're never going to go to a game preserve. So we thought, well, let's make a preserve and bring it to them. So we went with the thought that we were going to have to buy giraffes, but the president gave us the giraffes. So we're not paying anything for them. And then we'll put them out on the savannah there and see if we make some baby giraffes. We'll pump in the Barry White music and see what happens. So, so that's that idea. That would be what you and I've talked about a lot about a strategic whimsy. Like, how do we do what we do? And you need to understand why you're going to do what you do. And then to say, not just have a great purpose, but have a really good plan. And so if you were going to foster some children, then they would do a home study to make sure, it's not, it would be a really good environment to raise them. And they do the same thing, it turns out, with giraffes. Nobody asked them for the giraffes. So I think we're their first request. So they're going to do this home study, and giraffes eat acacias. So we planted 10,000 acacia trees, said, make it look like they've been there for a while. So when they do the home study. So that would be the strategy underneath all the celebration, is to say, what are the things that we can do, and where strategy and hope and joy and a really sound purpose and something that's lasting all intersect. That's where the best kind of lasting whimsy comes from, at least in my life. So it's been fun. I can't wait. I can't wait to see those giraffes.
Well, I can't either. And I just loved getting that email. It made me laugh out loud.
Yes. And they ship them standing up. Is that crazy? I was like, can we get some giraffe eggs? Or they ship them standing up because there's no bridges in Uganda.
Oh my
Thankfully.
goodness. Well, you mentioned whimsy, and I was so excited to see that new book coming out. I've read all your other books, love them, and frankly, I can hardly keep up with reading your books. I don't know how you're writing them so fast, but tell us a little bit of what whimsy means to you and why you chose that word. I was just so intrigued by that.
Yeah, what whimsy is to me is what giraffes are to universities. This is
Mm.
like an SAT question. So it's the idea. It's something that's lasting. It's something that matters. You could even take book writing.
Mm.
I find the process very tedious of writing. How about you? Do you find that tedious or?
Very, very
Yeah, yeah.
tedious. Yeah, I
So it's
wish I
like
could speak it.
I know it's like every
Yeah.
word is spelled differently, killing me. So so while the process is tedious, I know there's going to be a time where I'm going to be in a jar and I want something to lean up against it.
Sure.
So these are all of my thoughts,
Mm.
and not my opinions about you should do this and you should do that and you should shape up and all that, but just kind of observations about how life seems to work.
Mm.
So if faith guides your steps, then I would want somebody where they were wondering about the role of faith, or what about these faith gatherings where there's people that say they love God a lot, but they don't seem to like love people that he made a lot. So like I can't. And then he said, they are, if you want to love me, you got to love them. But they don't seem to like them, but they seem to like talk about liking him a lot. And so just how confusing it gets. And if we could
Mhm.
be just safe people to not with a cynicism, but to
Mhm.
say like but realism and optimism and hope for what our next courageous moves might make.
Mm.
So that would be a strategic whimsy. That's the whole idea of whimsy. You never catch a bubble if you blow it on a little bubble when you're a kid. If you ever caught it on a wand,
Mhm.
there's like some intention. It's kind of like a Mr. Miyagi move, to catch that thing. And so sometimes whimsy we think is just going to happen upon us. Like, oh, who knew?
Yeah.
But actually, most of the people I know that are making a lasting change in the world are constantly living in anticipation, but less often surprised.
Mm.
So I'm not surprised that we're ending up with giraffes because it would make sense that we would end up with giraffes. Now, it's unlikely there's not a lot of people that end up with giraffes, but it would make sense to me if we had a really a well-reasoned idea and that we just purchased 1 square mile of
Mhm.
savanna and we have some relationships that have gone over the last couple of decades that they would. It's not surprising to me, but I've been living in anticipation. I wonder how this will turn out, and I want our lives to be those kind of page turners that we're
Yeah.
living with so much anticipation. What might be possible? Maybe you have a job that you was a
Mhm.
great job when you got it, but you've kind of outgrown it. Like that's
Mhm.
something I'm capable of, but that sense of calling, you don't just spring out of bed saying, this is it, even though it's noble work and it's
Mhm.
noble to pay your bills. It's noble to provide for your family, whether you're planting the seeds, picking the crops, bagging them,
Mhm.
whether you're a cordon bleu chef. It can be
Mhm.
noble, but however, it might not be contemporary with who you've turned into. I'm
Mm.
a pretty good trial lawyer, or at least I used to be. I don't know, 15 years ago. But to say, even though I'm capable of that, do I have that sense of calling? And a whimsy move would be, what if I go Cortez, burn the ships, and just say, oh, we're just going to do
Mm.
this new thing. And it wasn't because like we made a
Yeah.
bunch of money and we're sitting on like sacks of cash, like futons.
Mhm.
But we just said, like, I just think there's something out there. I think there's another gear. And what would happen if we access that?
I love that. I love that because I thought of you when I was doing this new series on beliefs, why we believe what we believe. And that was the whole reason why I chose to work with you because I read your beliefs through all your pages and I listened to you speak and I thought, I'd like to learn more from this guy, Bob Goff. And I didn't know who you were. I just had met you, that I got on your website, and then next thing you know, you and I are chatting. So thank you. I
Yeah, isn't
appreciated
that
that.
fun? Boy,
Isn't that funny?
a great day for me.
Oh,
that we
awesome
got
day for
to hang
me.
out.
Yeah.
So, but think about those
Yeah.
like beliefs. Wouldn't you say
Mhm.
those would be born out of our experiences, both positive and negative, that we form
Mhm.
beliefs? Like you could say, like, think back to your first romance in high school, and then someone broke your heart because they uninvited you to the prom, which is actually, a page out of my like, I don't have a lot of romance story because there wasn't a lot of romance going on. So, notwithstanding my efforts, to the contrary. So, but then you have your heart broken, and then you make a rule
Mhm.
because of this lived
Mhm.
experience. And the rule is, oh, I'm never going to love again.
Mhm.
But the rule might be that I'm never going to go deep with anybody because the belief is that based on your lived experience is that people are going to leave. And so if
Mhm.
I go deep with them and then they leave, it'll just hurt more. And so the belief born out of that negative experience is that
Mhm.
everybody's going to leave it. And you actually start believing that.
Yeah.
And so you start living into the rule. And now I'm 25. I can't get a date because nobody
Mhm.
wants to go out. They'll go around with a happy guy and have him over to the party, but nobody wants to go like serious with a guy that's only an inch deep. And so that belief, although it was inaccurate, that arose out of an experience that was painful, turned into a rule that was harmful. And the rule was never go deep with anybody. And now I'm the guy that's all alone.
Yeah.
The happy guy, everybody wants to have that guy be somebody's friend, but you don't want to go like hang out with that guy.
Yeah.
So, like, or really go deep. And so, as soon as I started saying, what is that connected to? Where is that? Where did that rule find its like origin? What's the
Mhm.
origin story for the
Mhm.
rule? Now I could start doing something about it. I could
Yeah.
say, okay, I want to revisit the scene of the crime, find the little chalk
Mhm.
outline, which was your hope or your dream or your
Mhm.
love or your romance or whatever it is, but find where that kind of like crashed and burned. And then say, did I make a rule out of that? Did I form a set of beliefs arising out of that? And then the rule that you made is kind of scaffolding for your tender heart because you just got just kind of beat up and say,
Mhm.
I'll never love again. I'll never go deep with
Mhm.
anybody else again. And then that scaffolding actually is imprisoning you because you're like,
Mhm.
you've created this thing that at one time served a purpose to guard your heart, but
Mhm.
now it's like preventing you from going deeper. So I think beliefs, in my experience, arise out of circumstances, both good and bad. You might believe that people are
Mhm.
really trustworthy because you've had some experience with people. I have a belief that humanity rocks. You might have had some
Mhm.
really painful, awful experiences to say no one's to be trusted. And I think both might be false just in different ways. And
Yeah.
so just when you create the rule, so therefore don't trust anyone, I'd be like, well, actually, you might miss out. That rule might guard you from some
Mhm.
really sinister people, but might impede you from going deep with some really beautiful people.
Mhm. Yeah, and for our listeners, and many of them have heard me use the term false belief, and I'm right there with you, Bob. At some point in our life, we have to reevaluate. Is this a belief that is no longer working for me? And how do I shift it from a false belief and what I call false belief, something that's limiting us, something that we've created that story out of, that rule out of, and that agreement, that vow? How do we shift it over into a true belief? And I know that's where, use the word anticipate. For me, that is what defines faith. How do I shift it out of this false belief that I am no longer willing to buy into anymore? But how do I shift it over into a true belief that I know I am made for more? I mean, the name of my book and the name of the show, The
Right.
Life You're Made For, right? Where
Yeah.
it's not just something we talk about. It's something you and I both have experienced of how do we push through some of these beliefs that have held us back for too long? What does that look like to get on the other side of it?
Yeah, I'm thinking of two things springing to mind right now. One, in these books and letters that collectively people call the Bible, there's a dad, and I can kind of empathize with him because he has a son, and his son has problems, and there's nothing worse than having like your kids having a
Mm.
problem, and so I can feel his desperation. And he says to Jesus like that, I believe, just help all the parts I don't believe right now.
Mm.
So the first thing we got to do is figure out what are the things we really believe and what do
Mm-hmm.
we not believe anymore. So
Mm-hmm.
once we see it, then we can understand it. Then we can do something about it. But if
Yeah.
you just say, I'm depressed, like that is a real live feeling.
Yeah.
But it's a complicated combination of a number of things. Let's tease it out and see what is that? What is the part of your finances that are playing a role? What about with your friends? What about
Mm-hmm.
your relationships? What about so let's just do a little bit of an audit and see altogether that equals depressed, but let's see what pieces are made of. And then once we kind of figure out the pieces to say, is there something more we can understand about that? The second thing about anticipation, there's this again, Paul to his friends in Rome, he's saying um, that the entire creation stands up on its tiptoes, just
Mm.
waiting to see what's revealed to the
I
sons
love
and
that.
daughters.
Yeah.
And I love that. Like that whole idea, it's Romans 8:19. It's just like, I love that living in anticipation, up
Yeah.
on your tiptoes. I want to live with that kind of anticipation, even in the darkest parts of my life, even in the parts that seem like somebody just threw the whole sock drawer on the floor, to say that if we could rise up on our tiptoes to see what like that heaven is in anticipation with, like, how is this going to turn out? And if you believe that God knows everything that has happened,
Mm-hmm.
is happening, is going to happen, then that would be one set of beliefs. But without regard to how you believe about that, uh, the angels don't. Like the angels only
Mm.
know whatever God tells them. So,
Yeah.
like, we're going to read the Christmas story here in a little bit. And, the angel tells, or God tells the angel, go tell Mary she's going to have a baby.
Yeah.
and, I bet the angels just slack John, be like, what? But so what if we want to dazzle the angels with authenticity?
Mm.
So get real with your beliefs so you can dazzle the angels.
Mm.
And they would be dazzled not by a false statement about belief that you don't quite believe yet. And you say, if I just say it enough, then maybe I'll
Mm-hmm.
believe it.
Mm-hmm.
But there's actually a well grounded idea of what you believe and what I don't believe yet. Um,
I love
my
that.
uh, my daughter teaches kindergarten for a bunch of years. She did that, and they don't have grades there. They don't have
Mm.
like A, B, C, D's. They just have M means you've mastered it, and NY is not yet. So if I would
I
go
would have loved
through
that.
all my beliefs, I would
Yeah.
say I have like not yet.
Yeah.
Uh, and Jesus, I don't think was bummed when that guy said, "I just help me with all the parts I don't believe." I
Yeah.
think he's like, finally, there's somebody who's getting real enough to say, "I'm just not there yet." The whole
Yeah.
Ananias and Sapphira story would have turned out completely different if they just said, "I'm just not there."
Yeah.
Chilling words, as like they keel over one at a time, having said, here's everything, but they held back a little bit. Super generous.
Yeah.
But had they just said, I'm just not there yet, the ending would have been different. And chilling words like, you haven't lied to men, you've lied to God. Like,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
what if we were with that kind of reverence, wherever somebody listening is on
Mm-hmm.
this faith adventure or none of the above, but to say, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be really authentic about where I
Mm-hmm.
am. And I'm going to dive down. I'm going to drill down to understand what's that connected to? What
Mm-hmm.
lived experience made me rethink that or made me come up with a rule for my own protection?
Mm-hmm.
And then to say, are those still serving me, to your
Yeah.
point?
Well, and I think I'll use myself as a personal example. I love that you use the word authentic, because one of the false beliefs I really was battling was my authentic self is not wanted. So I have got to create an external image that feels a little more glittering, a little bit more desirable. And so there was this fear that who I really was wasn't wanted. As I began to really grapple with that story I was telling myself, or that rule I had created around that, and I was trying to anticipate and grab onto my faith that my authentic self was not only wanted and valued, but was desperately needed in this world, so that we show up for the life that we're made for. There's only a space for each of us that I believe is created for us. So if we are missing that authentic self, we're missing that space that the world is needing from us. And I think where I want to go with that is there are voices that will support that and voices that won't. One of the things is I was grappling, and you don't know this, but when I met you, I was in the middle of grappling with that false belief is what I call. And I thought, I'm going to go find the most authentic people I can who's living this out so that I can just like catch some whiffs off of what they're doing as it starts strengthening in myself. And you're one of so many great people at that point in my life as my identity was shifting and moving into more of this space of who I am is valued and wanted. And how I offer that is such a gift, not just to how God created me to be, but what the world is needing. And so I just want to say, first of all, thank you, because I think you model that so much to our world. But I wondered if you could speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, I'm thinking when you were talking about that, Am I Wanted, reflecting on Mike Foster's great book, The Seven Primal Questions. Is that something that's ended up crossing your desk? It's such a quick read. If it takes you more than a half an hour, you stop for coffee. Um, and the premise of the book is really simple, that we're born just like Enneagram types. We're born with questions we have. And the first question, and it's the one my wife has, is, am I safe? Emotionally, physically, all that. She's like Waffle House, 724. She's wondering, am I safe? And so I finished a trial I worked on for 5 years, and the jury came back and said you were won. And so then I told her, hey, honey, we're leaving for Hawaii in 2 hours. You don't even need to get a swimsuit. We'll get it when we're there. Now, her question is, am I safe? And that just gave her a huge no to that. And when you get a no, Mike would say, we go into the scramble. And you're just like, what does this mean? And so some people will do some, we'll know what our scramble is. Marie's scramble is to turtle. Other people's scrambles to go buy something. Somebody's scramble is to get loud or whatever.
Angry.
But yeah. So you figure out what your scramble is. The second question, am I secure? So somebody that just stepped off a 747 they bought for cash, and they're wondering, gosh, do I have enough money? And you're like, brother, like, just turn around, like, you're loaded. But their question is, like, do I have enough? Do I have enough? They've kind of over-indexed that. And so when their scramble is to go accumulate more things. The third question was, am I loved? Like, and we can all identify with that, but we all might identify more with one question than another. And somebody's scramble might be to go get a boyfriend or a girlfriend or whatever when they get a no to am I loved, they're so like, letting you go buy a car or whatever. Mine is, it sounds like yours, am I wanted? And so I went to this arena event, and I got there and found out I'm the last guy speaking on the last day. And I got in my mind that I'm not wanted. Now, if you talk to the guy that organized the event, he'd say, no, that's why you're the last guy on the last day. Forever. But I got in my mind, and my scramble is to quit stuff. So I went back and literally canceled 4 events that are similar to that, because I just go like, it wasn't a pout. It's just my scramble is to just start canceling stuff. If I'm not wanted, I'm out. And not with a pout, but just like kind of self-protection kind of thing. Here's the crazy thing. The question that we ask is the superpower we have. So Maria, if you were around here, you'd feel so safe. Yeah. It would probably be the 4 snipers on the roof around the house, but you'd feel super safe. If you're around me, you'll feel wanted. Like, I put my cell phone number in the back of millions of books. I want people, you're wanted, you're wanted, you're wanted, right? I wrote a book called Everybody Always. You're wanted, you're wanted. So can you see if it's like, am I safe? Am I secure? Am I loved? Am I wanted? Am I successful? Am I enough? And the seventh question is, am I living a meaningful life? And so that's just a 5-minute summary of this really well-written book. And the reason to take a dive to that is that you can understand, why am I doing the things I'm doing, which is what you are all about in people's lives. Just to kind of put that under the magnascope and to just say, why am I doing that? And to look closely. I've done an exercise with people where we'll get these people that are moving pretty fast and have like a lot of entertainer vibe going on around them. And we'll give them all magnifying glasses and say, just look closely at something, and some of them will just burn ants and like I don't know if there's such a thing as karma, they're a host. But to just slow down and look closely, and I think that would be among your messages to people:
Mhm.
look closely, understand what's
Yeah.
going on under the hood.
Yeah. Gosh, well said. It's making me think. I chose the word for the year, patience last year. Man, I learned a ton. And that was my form of putting it under the magnifying glass. And I'd
Yeah,
always heard this: don't ask for patience, don't ask God for patience, because then you'll hate the lessons, blah blah blah. I
yeah,
found that that was actually the antithesis of what I experienced. Patience began to be this like warm blanket put around me that says I am loved, I am wanted, I am valued. And then I think
yeah,
back at 1 Corinthians 13. I mean, what's the first thing it says? Love
yeah,
is patient and
yes,
kind. And so when we think about love always, love does, we use the word so often and for so many different reasons. But I'm learning to say, boy, if I truly love and care for someone, it's going to come out in my patience. And that's how someone feels loved.
yes. I get to officiate. Yeah, I can marry and bury, and so when someone reads, they want that reading from First
Yeah.
Corinthians 13. It's like love is patient and kind and all that.
Yeah.
It really starts getting good right after they stop the reading, and it's First Corinthians 13:14, and it
Mm,
says it's like looking through a mirror dimly, but then face to face. It's like a
mm,
Kodak
mm-hmm,
picture that just starts out kind of milky, and then as it
mm-hmm,
develops over time,
mm-hmm.
that this is another one of those letters from Paul. And again, you don't need a Bible verse, but I get it lands with me. It's First Timothy 1:16, that God put on display his immense patience, with me,
Mm,
the worst of the sinners, to show his just tremendous openness, like
yeah.
that he loves us, and he's putting on display immense patience, and that we could
Yeah.
put on display immense, just a weird amount of patience. And that's really hard for me. I mean,
Yeah.
I make coffee
Yeah.
nervous. I'm like, "Arr." I
Me
eat
too.
fast food, and
Yeah.
I don't like fast food. It's fast.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'll eat sushi, even though I don't love raw fish, because it's like, we don't have to stop to cook it. Let's go. So,
Yeah.
what I want us to do is to understand what is that connected to.
Yeah.
And so you may be either a reflection of or a reaction to the
Mhm.
people that are around you. So if everybody was patient in your house, you might be reflecting that. My mom was so patient. I'm
Yeah.
so patient. Or you may be like, I remember my grandfather used to always have this phrase: Rome wasn't built in a day. And
Yeah.
so you could ask him, like, pass the potatoes. And he'd say, Rome wasn't built in a day. I'm like, is this going to take a while? so, so the,
Yeah.
so I am a reaction to people that were weirdly patient,
Mm.
like, because a lot of things were stuck in what I would call pre-contemplation. That is,
Mhm.
we weren't actually doing anything about it. We were just kind of talking generally. And I would rather fail trying right now than fail watching. So
Yeah.
that this reaction probably like I'm
Mm.
over indexing, like, let's make
Mhm.
moves. I want to start 10 things, and the two that are out in front, those are where we're going. But I'm not going to do one, have it die a slow, painful death with no results. Then start the second one, have it not do anything for, now we're 2 years down the line. We haven't done anything. I'd
Yeah.
rather start 10. Oh, it's the same thing practicing law. They would set a trial date on, I'd have 25 cases going. They could set all 25 cases on the same date. I don't care. They're not all happening on the same date. So I'd say yes. And other lawyers would stretch it out over the next 5 years, and then all the dates would change anyway. So I'm like, just let's load them up. And that isn't apathy, it's strategy. And so,
Mm.
whatever your strategy, I just want your listeners
Mhm.
to think you through your strategy, know why you're doing it, see the results of your strategy. How's that worked out in the past? And then, if you need to make a couple mid-course corrections, like, make those.
Yeah.
Don't be efficient in the way that you love people. Like, some people
Mm.
have a strategy because they're impatient of just being super efficient and daytimers and all that. That's great. But you could end up being a bachelor.
Yeah. Well, I
Because
have to tell
nobody
us
wants to be efficient. Yeah.
no. And I have to tell a story on myself. We can laugh about it today, but we weren't laughing about it about 10 years ago in counseling, my husband and I, when he turns to the counselor and says, I just feel like Heather wants to strap me to the back of her bumper and and put the metal to, or the pedal to the metal. And I thought,
Yes.
it's a horrific picture. I mean, it's the antithesis of love is patient and kind. I was like,
Yes.
love is running over my husband and leaving him bloody in the rearview mirror. And I thought,
Oh my God.
we've
I'm
got some
picturing some
changes. Yeah.
National Lampoon
Is that
movie,
terrible?
something about a vacation and just having the little dog leash hanging. Where I remember tying him to the back bumper. Ugh. Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I think sometimes we need to ask people instead of saying, "How's life working for you?" Because you and I are
Mhm.
generally upbeat, and life's generally working for us. But to say, "How is my life working for you right now?"
Yeah.
And if you have those, if you create a safe environment, when we finish this, I had to ask my friend Stephanie here, how is my life working for you right
Mhm.
now? And then she would probably say, there's some things that are working out pretty good. And
Yeah.
there's other things that are
Yeah.
challenging. She's a good sport, but she'd be like, and so what if we took a genuine interest in that and
Yeah.
say, like, well,
Yeah.
can I help me work on the parts? Because I really want you to get to a place where you can say, my life's working or your
Yeah.
life's working for me.
Yeah.
But you could even audit your kids to say,
Mhm.
how life's working for you. But we
Yeah.
do that. You go to Denny's and they send you a form. You stay at Motel 6 and they say, how was the service?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
We could do the same thing at our church services. Like, how's that working for you?
Yeah. Well, one of the questions I have to ask is this helping? Because I have the best of intentions, Bob,
Yes.
but my 20-year-old and my 22-year-old isn't always appreciating all my insight. So I have to
Yeah.
say, hang on, mom is trying to help, but is this helping? And to
Yeah.
really give them the freedom and the permission to say, actually, no, it's not, mom. And
Yeah.
then for me to go, totally understand what would help you. And I even had to do that with a client today. I could feel his frustration and he was getting frustrated. It's an intense thing happening at work. And I just had to stop and say, what is it that you need that would help you in this moment? And he knows. My kids know. Everybody knows. We just don't slow it down. I think this is what probably patience has taught me is slow it down long enough, to your point, to take an audit, to take an evaluation, to get accurate feedback. Don't worry about your intentions being having to defend them. I think a lot of people spend time on that, but I'm like, no. Everybody knows you've got good intentions. Don't spend time trying to defend that. Really accurately ask, what's it like living with me? What's it like relating to me? What's it like being in this conversation with me right now? What is it that I'm missing? To be able to
Yeah.
have that is such a gift to give a relationship.
Yeah. And syncing up what the terms mean. When you mentioned your son, I was thinking about there's a website. I don't know if they still use it, but it was ratemyprofessor.com.
Oh, yeah.
And so I taught at a couple of schools and evidently sucked at it because I went on there and they had these like chili peppers. And I was like, I hate chili peppers. And so, but that means good. The
Oh,
chili
okay.
pepper is good.
Good.
But in the way
Yeah.
I grew up, that's a really bad thing.
Yeah.
Right. So to understand, like, so I don't
Uh-huh.
talk to people on speakerphones because when I was a lawyer, when somebody was a little pompous and a little
Yeah.
they weren't having a self-image problem. So then they would put you on a speakerphone to like kind of get some of that power vibe going.
Yeah.
And I would always lie and just say, hey, I'm getting like every third word. I don't know if we have a bad connection or instead of calling them, like, get me off that stupid speakerphone. I would just because I don't want to be confrontational because there's
Yeah.
some power, something going on. So I just blame it on the phone company.
Oh.
So if we could find a way to sync up and you could say, is there
Mhm.
another way that won't antagonize somebody? And
Yeah.
sometimes it's putting someone else between you and whatever is difficult for you. So
Yeah.
Stephanie is one person I put. That might be when I say, how's my life working for you? She said, could you stop putting me in between you and whatever's the problem? She's probably been like, yes, buddy. Wow. So does that make sense? So we come up with not
Yes.
with just an
Yes.
observation, but then you come up with a strategy.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you could be taking notes and not going anywhere. Instead,
Yeah.
I'd rather be taking notes and navigating a course towards a better outcome.
Yes. And to your point, the receptivity, it makes me think of one of the 7 practices in my book, Grace Space, receptivity versus defensiveness. We have a split second to choose. Are we going to be receptive to the feedback that we're getting? Or are we going to be defensive and shift it the other way?
Yeah. Yeah. You got to decide which you're better or lesser angels.
Yeah.
Because they're both trying to get your attention. Says, which one am I going with over here? Yeah. And sometimes there's this advocate side of me, this like trial lawyer side
Yeah.
that comes out. I'm like, hold my earrings. You're mine.
Oh, my
And then I just go like, no, that won't. Stephanie, what should I do? Yeah. So to find safe people around you, say, you don't have to worry about that. Because more often than not, when I go with my first instinct and do something,
Yeah.
then it just creates this predictable chaos. And then you call on the same people that you avoided before you did the stupid thing. You call them and they end up on cleaning duty. So
Yeah.
they need to clean up your mess. So to just realize that and be humble and just, so there's something beautiful. I was raised, and everyone should be raised, to not tell other people to shut up. That's like a cuss word. Like that's an F-bomb, like relationally. But it's okay to tell yourself to shut up every once in a while. Just shut up. Like you're about to say something, you're like,
Yeah.
And you go like, just don't.
Yeah. Or in my case, just settle down. You're about to strap him to the back of your bumper here.
Yes. Yeah. And you don't need to work for NASA to figure out the trajectory of where this is going to go.
Yes.
Like it just won't work out well.
No.
And yet everything inside you, like, so you feel like you need to right or wrong, or, never let evil prosper. There's some folks in our faith communities that have read, like always be ready to make a defense for the hope within you. And they want to be Jesus's lawyer and attack everything, but they stop reading short of the good part in that sense. You can't just like stop at the comma. It says, but to do it with gentleness and kindness.
Right.
And it says, if we could focus a little bit more on the gentleness and kindness, because that other dog, he doesn't need to be fed. The gentleness and kindness dog is like, you can see the bone structure. Like we're going to starve that one.
Yes.
So maybe during difficult times, and those have always been around us, and we're certainly going to enter into a period of a little bit of tumult. And so what we'll do is I'm just going to play my role in this will be to be a safe place. I'm not going to be the one taking a position on this, that. And again, it isn't apathy, it's strategy. Because then we can continue to have conversations with everybody about stuff that really matters.
I love that. Speaking of what really matters, you and I are both huge fans of our spouses. And I've been married, we're going on 32 years.
Come
How about
on.
you? I know. How about you and Maria?
38 years, 3 months, 12 days.
Oh my goodness. That's impressive, Bob. That's impressive. I think you got it down to the days.
Yeah. I think there's something though in marriages that bring out, it's this beautiful revelation. It just kind of tears off, because then somebody knows you so well. They know all your little picadillos and the people that work really close to you. It's just a different variety, but the same kind of energy is this marriage, because they know what your weird are. You go like, they know what you're good at and what you're not good at. And that's a really good thing. Being known is a really good thing.
And still being loved.
Yeah.
Isn't that fun, Bob? I mean, for me asking that question, I'm like, not only does he know me and all my different foibles and quirks and stuff, he still actually loves me and likes me. I mean, that's super fun. And I guess I wanted to ask you, you refer to Maria as Sweet Maria in all your books. Can you give us a little idea of how that came about?
It's funny. We were trying to figure out the origin story of that. And it's not like we're trying to talk her into it, because she's just genuinely the nicest person ever. But, the mail carrier calls her Sweet Maria. Everybody calls her Sweet Maria. So I think, I'm sure there was a time early on that she's like, no. But now I think she just knows that's how everybody knows her. Every once in a while, somebody will come up and they'll say, Sweet Maria. And she's like, not today.
I'm never sure if I'm supposed to use it. Is that a term of endearment? So I kind of just look at her. I'm like, should I just call her Maria? Do I call her
Yeah.
Sweet Maria?
Mrs. Maria,
Yeah. Mrs.
ma'am.
Goff.
Yeah, everybody calls her that.
Oh, I
She's
love
there
that.
now. But there's something that you would know. It's a little nuanced, but if people call her Marie instead of Maria,
Yeah.
that will be something you'll get as somebody wants something. If they just called her Marie, I'm like, oh, that was like that was just a mistake. It was such an innocent mistake,
Yeah.
but that ain't gonna work. No,
Yeah.
like, whatever follows Marie, she just stopped listening.
Oh,
And so it was somebody that calls me Robert. Hello, Robert, are you there? They go, well, there's somebody that clearly does not know me.
yeah.
Because I wouldn't, I don't even know if that's on a birth certificate.
Yeah.
So there's ways to understand as we're in the marketplace, in the world. I have 3 email addresses. I get 200 emails a day. I answer 200 emails a day to people. Just I
Wow.
want to honor if they
Yeah.
took the time to say hi, then to write back to them. So anyway, just as you're thinking through this at practical levels, come up with strategies.
Yeah.
You can remember like that hope without a plan is a wish. We want to be wishing for better relationships or more accuracy of where people are coming. So look, well, here's the plan.
Yeah.
And then if the plan fails, if there's just like a column of smoke where your
Yeah.
plan just blew up like a SpaceX rocket, then say, well, I'm going to come up with a new plan. And then just keep picking the lock.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I know you're close friends with me if you call me Heath. Heath. So you call me Heath, Bob.
That's great. Yeah, done.
And it's so funny how my head will turn differently. And then of course these formal people will call me Dr. Penny. I'm like,
Doctor, yes.
please just call me Heather. Some of them I can't get them to call me Heather, but I'm like, okay, just whatever. But the Dr. Penny almost makes me jump. The Heather, I can feel like, okay, someone is wanting to talk with me. The Head, I feel myself just like my warmth just melts. I'm like, oh, this is someone who really knows me.
Oh, that's cute. Yeah, you're reaching for a stethoscope.
Yeah, exactly.
What do I plug this thing into anyway? Yeah,
yeah, it kind of scares me when they call me that. Gosh, Bob, it's been so fun. I guess as we start wrapping up, what encouragement do you want? Because you and I are both such like cheering humanity on. We're fans of humanity. We're fans for how hard they're working. Man, I see this every single day, and all the clients I work with every week working so hard. And I have to share one of my favorite memories when I was at one of your retreats. You were finishing up the retreat, and you had showed that movie about all of these strangers coming out to a marathon and holding up signs.
Oh,
and they had found out the names of the runners and how they were just like dragging the last mile. And then all of a sudden, these cheerleaders just came out holding up signs like, go, Heather, go. And they didn't know they had anyone there. It was just the most powerful thing. And then, of course, true to Bob fashion, you had arranged for all of your staff to be out there holding signs up. And as we left the building, there were people cheering me on. Gosh, it almost makes me emotional just thinking about it. But holding up signs, just going, go, Heather, go. And I remember walking to the line, just sobbing because I'm like, oh my goodness, what a gift to just be cheered on. And so I know it's both of our hearts to just be cheering on this world. And I guess as we wrap up, I want to say, what do you want to leave them with? What do you want them to walk away just feeling your encouragement for them?
Here's the deal, wherever you're at on faith stuff, but it's so important that we're just talking about faith and where does that come from and all that. There was an explanation in one of the letters that nobody knows who wrote it. It just ended up, it's in this book called Hebrews, and it's in the 12th chapter, and it says, since we're surrounded by this great cloud of witnesses, so just think of everybody you've ever met, all the people that have preceded you, 105 billion people who've ever lived. Since we're surrounded by this great cloud of witnesses, let's run this race with endurance, the one that's set in front of us, not getting tripped up by all the things around, but keeping our eyes fixed. And what I want to do is if your eyes are fixed on Jesus, that's good. Run that race. If your wives are fixed on your family, run that race. If it's on humanity and all the goodness that is there, keep your eyes fixed on that. If your eyes are fixed on things that are tripping you up and tripping other people up, people's flaws, some really legitimate gripes that you might have about some awful things that you've endured, then I'd say, can we lift our eyes a little bit? And when we lift our eyes, you'll see this great cloud of witnesses, kind of like Echo Park. They're just cheering us on, just hoping we're just dazzle the angels. And we dazzle the angels with our authenticity.
I love that. I want to add on to that too. Declaration of Independence. I remember you kind of taught me that when we first started working together. And I thought, Declaration of Independence. I got it. Declaring your freedom. And then I just snapped out of it when you said, yeah, but remember, Heather, Declaration of Independence is also a declaration of war.
Yeah.
And it was so poignant and so sobering. And I think that's the thing I want to say. I see how hard humanity is working. And as you declare your independence, don't be surprised at what comes against you, because you're also having to declare war. And it's having those people in your corner that support what you're doing and what you're about. Man, that's what I'm cheering humanity on for.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Such a good time talking.
Thank you. You too. Take care, everyone.